The twin suns of Virelia beamed down on the capital's palace, a shining tower of glass and silver that stretched into the skies. Inside, thousands of alien guests filled the grand hall of supremacy. Flags from dozens of star systems fluttered. Gold-armored guards stood tall. It was the biggest event in the galaxy, the day Queen Avenzir would declare her final rule over the outer worlds. At the center of the room stood a human. His name was Caleb Voss, private first class of the United Earth Guard, now a ceremonial protector in the Virelian Empire. He stood at attention, unmoving, dressed in silver armor with Earth's faded blue symbol on his chest. He was surrounded by towering alien warriors. The Virelians were tall, graceful, and strong. With their 4 glowing eyes and shimmering green skin, they looked down on Caleb like he was an animal kept for show. Above him, on her golden throne, sat Queen Avenzir. She was tall and fierce, dressed in robes made of star silk. Her crown floated inches above her head, spinning slowly. Her voice echoed through the hall as she addressed the crowd. "Today," she declared, "we celebrate the end of resistance. The Earth War is over. The humans now serve with honor, as they should." Cheers erupted. Alien delegates clapped, some laughing. The Queen stood and slowly walked toward Caleb. Her 4 eyes scanned him like he was a bug under glass. The room went silent. "You," she said, her voice dripping with amusement. "Human, what is your name?" "Private Caleb, Voss," he replied, standing straight. "So serious," she smirked. "So small. Tell me, Private Voss, does it make you proud to serve your conquerors?" Caleb said nothing. "Ah, but you must speak when your queen asks," she pressed. "You see, this ceremony is not only about celebration, it is also about truth. And the truth is, you humans are not fit to lead. You are not wise. You are not strong. You are useful tools. Nothing more." The crowd laughed. Caleb clenched his fists behind his back. His jaw tightened, but he stayed silent. Avenzir circled him slowly. "Kneel," she commanded. The air in the room went heavy. He didn't move. The Queen's eyes narrowed. "Kneel, or your world will be reminded of its place." There was a long pause. Then slowly, with eyes full of fire, Caleb bent one knee. He didn't look down. He didn't bow his head. He stared straight at her. Not with hate, but with a quiet promise. The Queen smiled, satisfied. "This," she announced, turning back to the crowd, "is the place of humanity, strong enough to be of use, but never more." Applause filled the air again. The ceremony continued, but for Caleb, something inside had changed. He wasn't just angry. He was awakened. Later that night, the halls of the palace were quiet. Caleb stood at his post outside the Queen's chambers. The stars above shone through the glass ceiling. His comm unit buzzed softly in his ear. A coded voice spoke. "Voss, report." He spoke without moving his lips. "Virelian security systems weak in the East Wing. Drone patrols use predictable paths. Internal guard rotations every 4 hours. No redundancies." There was a pause. "Copy that. Continue observation. Do not engage." Caleb blinked twice to confirm he wasn't just a guard. He was a plant, part of a long plan by Earth's strategic command to monitor the Empire from within. The humiliation had been real. The shame burned in his chest. But now, it was fuel. The galaxy had to believe humans were beaten. Only then would they lower their guard. He looked up at the stars, thinking of home. Someday they would rise, not with hate, but with something stronger, with hope. The stars outside her window shimmered, but her mind was full of storms. Her throne felt colder each day. She had ruled the Virelian Empire for decades. No one had ever questioned her before. Not her generals, not her people, not even her enemies, until now, a human had done what no Virelian dared. He looked her in the eyes. He spoke the truth, and worst of all, thought she believed him. She walked through the silent halls of her palace, her long robe trailing behind her. Every wall, every statue, every glowing pillar reminded her of power. But for the first time, that power felt empty. In a hidden chamber deep beneath the palace, she activated a security screen. Secret recordings filled the air, surveillance from every corner of her palace. Most nights, she watched them to feel in control. Tonight, she watched a group of humans. They were not rioting. They were not plotting war. They were helping each other, sharing food, fixing damaged systems, whispering messages of hope. Even after years of slavery and shame, they still held together. She watched Caleb Voss in one clip, standing in silence as two alien guards insulted him. He didn't react. He just stood tall, his eyes strong. She closed the screen. Her hands trembled slightly. "What am I doing?" she whispered. Meanwhile, in the lower tunnels, Caleb stood with Marcus and Samira. They had gathered 15 humans, engineers, guards, technicians, even a cook. A map glowed on the wall. Caleb pointed. "We've hacked the eastern drone bay. Marcus's team can shut down the guards there for 10 minutes. That's our window." Samira asked. "And then what? We take over the palace?" Caleb shook his head. "No. We don't start a war. We send a message." He tapped a device. "This transmitter will connect to every major star system's public channel. Virelians, humans, other species. They'll all hear the truth for the first time." One of the cooks, a quiet old man named Doran, looked up. "What if they shut it down?" "They will try," Caleb said. "But we only need 5 minutes." Marcus smiled. "I can give you 10. Everyone nodded. The plan was risky, but hope made it worth it. They had waited too long to be seen. 2 nights later, during the Festival of Unity, the Queen stood again in front of thousands in the Grand Hall. Her crown floated. Her robes shimmered. Her voice was calm, but her heart beat fast. "Let this day remind us," she said, "that the Empire stands strong, that peace is built on order, on structure." As she spoke, her eyes kept searching the crowd. Where was Caleb? Then it happened. The lights flickered. The music stopped. The floating screen above the hall changed. A human face appeared. It was Caleb Voss. "People of the galaxy," he said, standing before a glowing blue flag. "You may not know me. I am a guard in the Virelian palace, a servant, a soldier, a human." He paused. "I speak today not to start a war, but to speak the truth you're not allowed to hear." Guards rushed toward the control tower. Marcus and Samira held them back. On the screen, Caleb continued. "Years ago, Earth was attacked. We lost. We were beaten. We were told we were weak, useless, just tools. But they were wrong. We are still here. We think, we feel, we learn, we fight. Not with hate, but with hope." All over the galaxy, people watched. Humans and aliens alike, in ships, on stations, in markets. The message was spreading. "We are not your enemy," Caleb said, "but we are not your slaves. We are equals. And today we ask only one thing. Look again. Look at who we are now." In the grand hall, the screen went black. Silence. Then shouting. Some aliens demanded Caleb's arrest. Some called it rebellion. But Queen Avanzir raised her hand. "Enough." Everyone froze. Her voice was quiet but sharp. "Do not call truth a rebellion." The room gasped. She looked up at the guards. "Bring him to me, alive, unharmed." In the central command chamber, guards stormed in. Caleb stood calmly, hands behind his back. He looked at Samira and Marcus. "Time to vanish, phase 2. They nodded and disappeared into the tunnels. Caleb turned as guards aimed weapons at him. "I won't fight," he said. "I've already spoken." They cuffed him and marched him through the palace. Everywhere he passed, humans stopped and stared, not with fear, with pride. Even some Virelians looked unsure. Back in the throne room, Avenzir stood tall as they brought Caleb forward. The nobles hissed. One shouted, "He must be executed." "Silence," the queen ordered. She looked at Caleb. "Was it worth it?" He nodded. "Yes. You risked everything." "Freedom always costs something," he said. Avenzir walked slowly toward him. "I could have you removed, wiped from records, sent to a labor moon." "But you won't," Caleb said softly. "Why not?" He looked at her. "Because you know I told the truth, and deep inside, you want change too." She stared at him, and then something happened no one expected. The queen sighed, and she sat down. Not on her throne, but on the steps in front of it. Her voice broke. "All my life I ruled with fear. I thought fear made people listen. But I see now, it only made them silent." She looked up at him. "I humiliated you, Caleb Voss. I wanted the galaxy to forget you. But now, I want them to remember." She stood, then bowed her head. "I am sorry." The hall stood in stunned silence. Caleb didn't smile, he didn't gloat. He simply said, "Then let's begin again." The halls were still quiet. The statues still stood tall. The stars outside the glass ceilings still shimmered. But something deep within the palace had changed. A powerful silence had been broken. Word spread fast. The queen had bowed. To a human. To Caleb Voss. Virelians whispered it in shocked tones. Humans repeated it with wide eyes and trembling hope. On other planets, in faraway colonies, the message Caleb sent still played again and again. People watched it with disbelief, then with pride. The slave had spoken like a leader, and the empress had listened like a student. In the royal tower, Queen Avenzir stood before a long mirror. She looked at her reflection, the golden crown on her head, the flowing royal robe, the shimmering skin of her kind. She touched her face. For the first time, she didn't see just a queen. She saw a person. Behind her, her brother Lord Virek entered. "You have gone too far, sister," he said sharply. "Apologizing to a human? Letting him speak like an equal? You shame our blood." The queen didn't turn. She kept looking at herself in the mirror. "Perhaps it's time our blood felt shame," she replied. His eyes narrowed. "This empire was built by strength." "No," she said softly. "It was built by fear. And now I see how weak that truly is." He stepped forward angrily. "You are dividing the council. The nobles demand action. If you do not remove the humans, I will not. Then you will fall." She turned finally, her voice steady. "Then let me fall on the side of what is right." Virek stared at her in silence, then stormed out without another word. In the underground quarters, Caleb stood among dozens of humans. He had been released that morning. No chains, no orders. Just a message from the queen. "Meet me in the Garden of Suns. Bring your people." Now he stood before them, calm as always. "You don't need me to lead you," he said. "You've already led yourselves. I just reminded you of who you are." Marcus stepped forward. "What happens next?" Caleb looked at all of them. The tired workers, the quiet mothers, the young guards with hope in their eyes. "We go forward, as equals, or not at all." The Garden of Suns was the most beautiful part of the palace. Floating lights moved between alien trees. Waterfalls flowed across glowing stone. Birds from distant worlds sang softly. The queen stood at the center, waiting. Behind her stood a dozen Virelian officials. Some looked confused, some angry, some simply curious. Then the humans came, not in chains, not with heads down, but walking tall. Caleb walked at the front. Beside him were Marcus, Samira, Juno, Doran, and many others. The queen raised her hand. "My people," she said, "I once ruled by making others small. I believed that peace came from silence. But silence is not peace. It is fear. She looked at Caleb. This man reminded me of something I forgot. Strength is not in power, it is in unity. The human stood quietly, watching, waiting. Avenzir took off her crown. Gasps spread through the Virelians. She handed it to a servant and faced the crowd again. From this day forward, she said, humans will no longer serve under chains. They will work beside us, speak beside us, build beside us, and lead beside us. The words echoed through the garden. Some aliens were angry, some left, but many stayed, and many began to clap. One by one, the sound grew, louder, stronger, real. Caleb nodded once. It had begun. Weeks passed. The palace changed. Humans were given free housing inside the capital. A human Virelian council was created. New rules were written. New leaders stepped forward. Some Virelians protested, but most were curious. They began to listen. One day, Queen Avenzir invited Caleb to walk with her through the palace gardens. They walked side by side in silence for a while. Finally, she asked, "Do you think they will forgive us, your people?" Caleb looked ahead. "Not all at once. Forgiveness takes time. But you started it." She nodded slowly. "You know, there are still many who want you dead. I know, and yet you stay." "I stay," Caleb asked. The golden halls of the Virelian palace were quiet at night. The crowds were gone. The lights were soft. The guards marched in silence. Most people believed that the empire was calm and powerful, but Caleb Voss saw something else: weakness. Caleb had served in many places during the war, but nothing felt stranger than standing in this palace. The place was full of beauty, but no soul. Shining statues, glass walls, floating candles, everything was for show. Behind it all, the Virelians were proud and arrogant. They believed they had crushed humanity forever, but Caleb knew better. He moved through the halls like a ghost, watching and listening. He remembered every corner, every camera, every strange alien machine he saw. Other humans in the palace worked as servants, cleaners, and tech assistants. Most were afraid to speak out. Caleb didn't blame them, he just smiled at them kindly and kept walking. One evening, while walking past the throne room, Caleb saw a young human technician drop a data tool. A Virelian overseer shouted at him and slapped him across the face with a long metal rod. "Clumsy thing. Be grateful we let your kind live," the alien barked. The human boy didn't reply. He just picked up the tool and ran. Caleb stood nearby, watching quietly. He didn't move. Not yet. In the quiet of his quarters, Caleb opened a secret panel behind the wall. Inside was a small device the size of his palm. It blinked with a blue light. He placed a finger on it. A voice spoke softly. "Agent Voss, report." Caleb whispered. "The Queen's inner circle is growing unstable. Her brother, Lord Virek, disagrees with her ruling style. Several governors are nervous about the human workforce getting smarter. I believe the palace is not united." "Progress?" "I've mapped out 70% of the palace. Found weak points in shield control, security doors, and defense. Drones. They trust their technology too much. They forget how humans think." "Good work. Continue. No action yet. Be patient." Caleb nodded. Understood. He placed the device back in the wall and sat down. He remembered the Queen's words during the ceremony. "You are tools." But he wasn't a tool. He was a weapon. A quiet one. Waiting. A few days later, a royal banquet was held in the upper dome. Hundreds of Virelian nobles arrived, wearing glowing robes and speaking in their strange, floating language. Human staff moved through the crowd, carrying trays, serving drinks. Caleb stood at his post, eyes scanning the room. Suddenly, a voice whispered in his ear. "Target sighted. Upper balcony, non-authorized." Caleb turned his head slightly. High above, near the control lights, a shadow moved. It was fast, too fast for a servant. He blinked once, activating his visor. A heat signature flashed. Someone was up there, armed. Caleb didn't wait. He broke protocol and rushed up the spiral stairs. The alien guards shouted behind him, confused. Caleb reached the balcony just in time to see a small cloaked figure aiming a weapon down at Queen Avanzir. Without hesitation, Caleb tackled the figure. They rolled across the floor. A laser bolt fired into the ceiling. Screams came from below. The assassin pulled a knife. Caleb blocked it with his forearm armor and punched hard. The attacker fell back, dazed. Alien guards finally arrived and grabbed the figure. When they removed the mask, it was shocking. A Virelian noble. Avanzir looked up from the hall. Her 4 eyes met Caleb's. For once, she didn't smile. Later, in a private chamber, Caleb stood before the queen. "You saved my life," she said, staring at him. "Why?" Caleb stood straight. "Because I was trained to protect, even when others forget our worth." She tilted her head. "You do not speak like a servant." "I'm not," Caleb replied. For a moment there was silence. "Who do you serve, then?" she asked slowly. "I serve something you wouldn't understand. A world you think is broken. But it's stronger than you know." The queen leaned forward. "You interest me, human. Most of your kind keep their heads down." Caleb didn't respond. He didn't need to. She looked at him longer, then waved her hand. "You may leave for now." Caleb walked away, knowing something had changed. A crack had formed in the queen's mind. Doubt. Days passed. Strange things began happening in the palace. A security drone suddenly shut down near a restricted lab. A control panel overloaded in the eastern tower. Several data files from the royal archives vanished without a trace. The queen was growing nervous. She called secret meetings. She questioned her advisors. But the humans inside the palace started walking a little taller. Caleb had started something. Not just in data systems, but in people. A new energy filled them. Not fear, purpose. One night, a fellow human guard, Samira, whispered to him in the corridor, "You said nothing during the ceremony, but we all saw how you stood. We talk about it. All of us. You gave us something." Caleb looked at her and gave a small nod. "Then hold on to it. We're not done yet." As the palace lights dimmed that night, Caleb stood alone by the window, looking at the stars again. The queen thought she had broken him. But what she did that day, the way she humiliated him in front of the galaxy, had only lit a fire. He wasn't planning revenge. He was planning a future. And he wasn't alone. The palace no longer felt calm. Guards were stricter. Security drones flew faster through the halls. Virelian officers whispered among themselves. Something had changed since the assassination attempt. Queen Avanzir had grown quiet. She didn't speak with the same pride in her voice. Her steps were slower. Her 4 eyes watched everything now, especially Caleb Voss. Caleb, however, walked with the same calm and control. He had not said anything about the assassin since that day. He didn't ask questions. He didn't brag. But inside, his mind was busy. The attack had not surprised him. He had known for weeks that unrest was growing inside the empire. Many of the queen's own people were turning against her. Some wanted power. Others were afraid of her rule. But most of all, they were angry at her decision to keep humans close. To the rebels, humans were weak. But now one of them had saved the queen's life. That truth could not be hidden forever. Later that week, Caleb entered the lower machine bay. The room was hot and noisy. Pipes hissed with steam. Alien workers moved around, checking systems and fixing cables. Among them were several humans, working in silence. Caleb walked up to a worker named Marcus, a thin man with oily hands and tired eyes. "Status?" Caleb asked softly. Marcus looked around to make sure no one was listening. Then he nodded. "We placed the bypass code into the drone system. If needed, you can shut down half of them with one command. Eastern Gate is also ready. Weak shield frequency, just like you guessed." "Good," Caleb said. "Keep it quiet, we don't move yet." Marcus nodded again, then returned to work. Caleb turned and walked back to his post, passing other humans. Some of them gave him small nods. Others just looked at him with quiet respect. He had become more than a guard. He had become a symbol. That evening, during a small royal banquet, Caleb was called to stand inside the Queen's private dining hall. Only a few elite aliens were present, high lords and advisors. Queen Avanzir sat at the long crystal table, sipping a glowing blue drink. She looked at Caleb. "Come forward," she said. He stepped toward her, keeping his posture strong and calm. "I heard," she said slowly, "that some humans are growing bold. Do you know why?" Caleb kept his voice even. "They are starting to believe they are more than servants." The Queen raised a brow. "And are they?" Caleb met her eyes. "Yes." The room fell quiet. Some of the alien nobles stared in shock. One even scoffed. Avanzir said nothing, for a moment. Then, to everyone's surprise, she let out a soft laugh. "You are brave. I see why you were chosen for the throne guard." "I wasn't chosen," Caleb replied. "I was placed." Her smile faded slightly. "Placed?" "Yes, I was sent here to observe, to learn, and now to act if needed." Gasps filled the room. One alien lord stood up. "He threatens the Queen." But Avanzir raised a hand, stopping them. "Let him speak." Caleb looked directly at her. "I saved your life because it was right, not because I serve you. You think humans are weak, but we are not. We adapt. We survive. And when the time is right, we rise." Avanzir looked at him for a long time. Then she stood. "Leave us," she told the others. The alien nobles, left in silence, throwing glances back at Caleb. When the room was empty, the Queen walked slowly to the window. The stars outside were bright tonight. "Do you know why I humiliated you?" she asked. Caleb said nothing. She continued, "Because I was afraid. Of what your kind might become. Of what you might inspire." She turned to him. "I wanted the galaxy to see humans kneel. I wanted you to kneel, because I thought that if you looked weak, others would stay calm." Caleb's voice was quiet but firm. "You were wrong." "Yes," she whispered. "I was." That night, across the palace, something unexpected happened. In the control towers, a human engineer named Juno locked out a Virelian officer from the terminal. In the drone bay, Marcus disabled 2 scout units without alerting the system. And in the staff quarters, humans gathered in secret, sharing messages and small plans. They